All right. Here we go. And you know what time it is? You are in charge. You are the boss. And in order for you to have a successful meeting as the executive, you're going to want to avoid some things. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference. So let's dive in.
All right. Now, you may or may not know this, but executives and executive leaders share a particular challenge when it comes to their speaking. And my heart is for executives. That's who primarily my clients are as I've trained, and I work with them because they have a very unique set of challenges. They're like Liam Neeson from Taken when he's like, I have a particular set of skills. Well, executives have a unique and particular set of challenges. That's my Liam. That's not a very good Liam Neeson. I would say it's like C- when it comes to Liam Neeson. So when I look at an executive, one of the biggest problems that they have when they are running a meeting or when they're in charge or when they are forced to give a, off the cuff type of update about numbers, about projections, they tend to fall apart in an area that I would call the question and answer area. Now, I was trained about doing questions and answers when I worked for Dale Carnegie. And what I've seen is nobody really prefers these because for an executive, this is the time when things are out of your control. You just ran your slide deck, you just completed whatever the talk is, and now you have to actually close the meeting off. And you, for the first time ever, are saying, hey, I'm now giving control of the meeting to everybody else. What's that like? Like, think for a moment what that's like for you. Like, how do you feel? Like, let's say you had the opportunity to be in a particular environment that you were able to control, and now you shift to where you can't control anything. That's exactly what happens with the question and answer. And here's a couple, I'm going to give you some reasons why leaders struggle. So the first thing is they are afraid of being stumped. What's going to happen if I'm stumped? Like, what if I don't know the answer? What if somebody says, hey, could you tell me the square root of 65,852 multiplied by cosine over tangent of pi over 3? Like, and you as the leader go, I don't know what that is. This sounds like numbers. Like, we think we're going to look stupid. I'll tell you where this happens with me. Every now and again, I'm a pastor, so I work for a large church, and I've been doing this for 21 years. So occasionally, I will get somebody who is leaving the church. They're walking out of the church. They're not leaving for good, but they're leaving for the week. They're saying goodbye, and they go, hey, Pastor Sam, Matthew 15, verse 12, go. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, tell me what you think about that. I'm like, well, I have to look it up. They're like, what? You have to look at, it's almost like a gotcha. I'm like, oh, I didn't memorize the whole Bible. I don't have it memorized. I have a lot of it memorized. I like reading the Bible. I've been studying it for years. But they like the idea of stumping you. Sometimes it's just to be funny, whatever. It doesn't bother me because I don't really care because I do try to help people with as much as I can with the Bible. But an executive feels that people are going to try to stump them or try to make them lose confidence or try to expose them, thereby revealing most executives' deadliest secret, that they suffer from imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is that thing that happens where you think that you are supposed to not be in the role that you're in, right? Like you think that the real guy should have showed up to help you and do the job, but you showed up instead. And one day somebody is going to tell everyone, hey, this guy shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be leading a church. He shouldn't be leading a board meeting. She shouldn't be here running the numbers and casting vision. That's not what she should do. Do you know who this is? This is that lady from this small town. This is that guy who grew up with a really poor family. And imposter syndrome is that feeling that you get of you don't belong there. And it's you're kind of a fraud. And so John Acuff, New York Times bestselling author, said, the thing to remember about imposter syndrome is that imposters never get imposter syndrome. They don't get it. They know they don't belong there. They know it. So it's not a question of like, oh, should they be here? No. They know they don't belong here. And so they are okay being imposters, but people that actually belong, like you belong doing what you're doing right now, my friend. You are there for this particular time, in this particular event, in this particular part of your leadership. God has put you there, I believe, and you have to own that space. And so imposter syndrome is not something that you should be thinking about when question and answers come up. And truthfully, this is where it's going to hit you the most, because you're going to think all of these people that are reporting to me are smarter than me. All these people that are reporting to me, they know more about subject XYZ than me, right? So you have to go from what I would say is a presentation mindset. Like I got my slides, I got my drawings, I got my videos, my illustrations, and now you're shifting into a dialogue mindset. Now we're having a conversation, but you can't control a conversation. You can control a presentation, but controlling a conversation requires work. So couple other mindset things. Then I'm going to give you a little framework that only has 3 parts that'll help you. So another mindset is you have to go from being on trial to on mission. You go from being on trial to on mission. So you have to let go of the imposter syndrome. You have to go from presentation mindset to dialogue mindset. And you have to go from being on trial to on mission. What do I mean? Well, what we think when somebody's asking questions is we think that we are in a courtroom drama, like the Jack Nicholson. In my book that I'm releasing in a couple weeks, The Trained and Confident Communicator, I talk about that famous scene with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise and A Few Good Men. And, you know, Jack Nicholson's on the stand and Tom Cruise is grilling him and he's like, you can't handle the truth. That's my Jack Nicholson impression is very much on par with my Liam Neeson impression. They're right next to each other. Like if you put impressions as they go side by side, I would go Jack Nicholson a little bit better. You can't handle the truth. And Liam Neeson, not so good because I don't exactly know what his accent origin is. So I just make it, sometimes he's British, sometimes he's Australian, sometimes he's Brooklyn. Like, I don't know. I have no idea where these people live. But there's that scene where Jack Nicholson is sitting on trial and he becomes defensive. He's shredding the lawyers. He's talking about, you don't know what I've defended this country and blah, 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 blah. And like he's just laying in. And he's defensive because he's on trial. He is a witness and he's being interviewed by the defense attorney that is trying to trip him up, right? So that is, unfortunately, the same exact way that we often approach being asked a question in our presentations. We think that our people are putting us on trial as if like they're trying to see like, do you have what it takes to be, and again, Jack Nicholson's there again, but like, do you have what it takes to be where you are? Because I'm going to trip you up. But instead, what we want to shift to as the leader, as the executive, and I'm speaking to you as an executive right now, your goal is to go from presentation mindset to dialogue mindset. Now your goal is to go from being on trial, thinking you're on trial, to we're on mission. We are like, that question and answer is an opportunity for you to lead well. It's an opportunity for you to cast vision. It's an opportunity for you to clarify some key points in your message. It is an opportunity for you to get a pulse of what's actually going on with your people. And when you are open to answering questions, you are taking your people to a different level of the mission. Every single question that is asked of you, every single one, is an opportunity for you to lead with your words. Every single one. Now, here's what I know about you. If you're in an executive role, I don't know much about you, but I will tell you some things. I know that you know your job and you know the company better than most people. I know that you have a high performance ethic. And I know that you have more responsibility than a lot of the people in your organization. So the way you want to frame this in your mind is, I am the one most qualified to help and answer this question at this moment. I am the one who is most qualified to help and to answer this question in this moment. It's you. You're the one. You're the person. And so you have to own that and realize that it's an opportunity for you to lead well, to lead with your words, to lead with confidence, and not be defensive. Hey, I wonder why our Q4 numbers are down. Oh, our Q4 numbers aren't down. And I've seen executives get exactly that way. The moment that they're pressed, the moment that they're asked, they become very defensive because they're on trial. But I would rather you go from being on trial to on mission. So let's get into the framework, which I call the AAA framework for answering a question well. This isn't mine. It's been developed by a bunch of different speaking people, like people that speak, by instructors on speaking. And this is just one framework. There's a bunch of them. Dale Carnegie has an amazing one. Dale Carnegie's is long, and it's very, very effective. This is a simpler one, and I'm going to give you some pointers as we go to use it. So this is, again, 3-part framework for answering a question well. So first, you want to acknowledge the question. You want to acknowledge the question in some way. So what you don't want to do, here's where people have a big problem with question and answers, is they often will ignore that a question's been asked and they will just jump right into answering the question. So if I ask, like, hey, why were our Q4 numbers are down? And now if I'm in a room with, like, let's say 50 people, now when I'm speaking on the weekends, when I'm speaking at church, there's hundreds of people there. So if I were to do question and answers, which I don't do often, but let's say I do, if I were to ask them, does anybody have a question? And somebody in the back asks me, how come our Q4 numbers are down? And I go, well, because of inflation and tariffs and, because of whatever. I just give the answer. 90% of the people in the room didn't hear the question. Didn't hear it. They don't know exactly what I'm talking. They just randomly think I'm just spouting off. Bleh, I don't even know. And they try to. Nobody's going to say, I didn't hear that person doesn't exist hardly. I didn't hear the question. Could you ask what they asked? No. You have to acknowledge the question. And one of the things you don't want to do when you acknowledge a question is you don't want to say, boy, that is a great question. Don't grade people's questions. When you were in school, you got graded. When you were in school, you graded questions. You graded things. You're not grading as an adult. I'm sorry, you're not. But you want to acknowledge the question by either, let's see here, how would I frame this? You either want to repeat the question, or if it's a hostile question, you can reframe it in a way that is neutral, which we'll get to in a moment. This is called reframing it, or redirecting it. But acknowledging is when you explain. So what I would say is I would either repeat the question. So I would say, thank you for this. You thank them. John asked about Q4 numbers. And you proceed to the next part of the framework. So you want to make sure that you are acknowledging that person for answering. Thank you for the question. This question concerns Q4 numbers. We have a question about Q4 numbers that fits into our budgetary category. Whatever you want to say, where you are letting everybody else know what you are about to talk about. Now, here's your temptation. You're like, okay, now I answer the question. Blah, 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 blah. I tell them Q4 numbers because of the tariffs and blah, 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 and because the war with Ukraine still going on, blah, 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 blah. No. This is where you have the opportunity to lead. The second part of the framework, first is acknowledge the question. The second part is to anchor the question to the core values of the company. Anchor the question to the core values of the company. Whether it's a hostile question or not, you anchor it to the bigger message. So, for example, hey, how come our Q4 numbers are down? Anchor it to the bigger message and values. Yes, we are always aiming at XYZ company to make sure that we are achieving maximum profits for our shareholders. And we have an entire system devoted to profit optimization. And you explain how their question fits into the vision. Now, why is this important as a leader? It is so important because as an executive leader, your number one goal is not all the minutia and the details. Your number one goal is not driving the organization forward. Now, this is an argumentative thing I'm going to say. You might disagree. Your number one goal is casting vision and making sure that all of the people in your organization are on the same page. When an organization is aligned, then it really is a sky's the limit type of situation. And one of the ways that you can align your organization is simply by restating some of the visions, some of the values, some of the things that are the priorities of the organization when you are answering a question. Here's how Q4 numbers fit into our current goal to blank. Here's how Q4 numbers affect our vision over the next 20 years having blank and blank and blank. Think about your vision, and as a leader, use this white space of time to realign the person asking the question with the vision. Right? This is powerful. You don't want to skip it. It's an optimal opportunity for you to lead and show everyone that you are a one-hit wonder when it comes to messaging. This is what we're doing. 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 There's tons of books written. I mean, Simon Sinek has a book written about why. Start with why. You have other people like Seth Godin that write about messaging and how important it is to repeat and repeat and repeat. And as a leader, just because you have spent hours on branding and strategy and mission behind the scenes does not mean that the people that you're speaking to have that same level of confidence articulating it. So you have to anchor your message into their question. You have to anchor their question into the values of the company. All right? So you acknowledge, you anchor, and then finally, 3 guesses as to what 3 is. Answer. Answer simply and as clear as you can make it. I'm going to give you some contingencies. All right, so this is where you answer. And then I would answer it simply. You don't want to use this opportunity to make another 25-minute presentation. You want to answer it simply and as clearly as you can get. Now, this is where you want to bridge to the next person asking a question. So I would try to be shorter on the answer, and I would keep it relative to the anchoring point and to the acknowledgement that you heard what they say. All right? Now, I'm going to give you a couple contingencies, and this is, bonus stuff. All right? So I'm going to be on the shorter side today for our talk, but this is a lot of information, so you have to mull it over. I would recommend getting the notes from this and putting it down and then maybe kind of reframing some of your own questions and how you would do a question answer thing. But okay, so the biggest question is 2 questions. Number 1, what if I don't know the answer? Like, what if I don't know? Like, what if I don't know? What if they ask me something like, hey, tell me about line item number 27 from the budget from 2015 and how that differs from the line item number 29 in budget of 2025. Like, you're not going to know that answer, bro. You're not going to know it. It's okay. Like, let's just be honest. You don't know all the things. And you have to be okay with that. You're a human being. And I'm going to take a step further. As a leader, people respond to leaders that are always real better than they respond to leaders that are always right. So there are times I have led, I have a wonderful church that I've been the leader of for 21 years, and one of the leaders. We have an awesome leadership team. And there'll be things that come up in meetings sometimes, and somebody will say, well, how do we do blah, 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 or how many people blah, 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 and I go, I don't know. Now, am I saving face? Not really. But if I don't know, I'm not going to go, well, actually, according to the statistics of the blah, 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 and I try to make myself sound smart. Well, then I'm disingenuous. And not only that, I'm lacking integrity. So here's a way that you say, I don't know, without losing your authority. So here's what you do. You tell them where the source of that information is going to be. So Margaret has the latest numbers on the meeting from 2015. I'm going to check with her, and I am going to get back to you. And now these are the ingredients of this. Number one, by email, by text, by call, or when I see you. Okay, so give them the medium by which way you're going to answer that question. And then the final piece of this is going to be by this date, by next Thursday. So let's say you say, Sam, how come the Q4 numbers from 2015 are drastically different from the numbers of 2025 on line number 27 in the budget? All right. So I would say, thank you for that. And I would anchor, John is asking about the 2015 versus 2025 comparisons of the things. And we are aiming to make sure that our shareholders are going to have the greatest Q4. That's where I cast a little bit of vision there. And I'll say, now, tell them where you're going to get it. That's the first part. One, Margaret has the latest and greatest when it comes to the budgetary numbers, and I'm going to follow up with her after this meeting. Two, I will text, email, call, see you in the hall, whatever way you're going to contact them. Three, by X date. You're giving yourself a date. By June 15th. Because you're publicly making yourself accountable. Now, this is a follow-through. This is a delegation thing as a leader. Make sure you do it by that date. And be like, June 15th came and went, and guess what? Dude didn't send it. He's incompetent. That's what they'll think. But you're not going to do that because you're an executive. You're listening to this podcast. You are going to have that number by the 15th. You're going to probably send it to them before the 15th. Give yourself a buffer. And you'll be able to make sure that they know. So it's not that you have to know everything. You just have to know where to get the things you need to know. Let me say that again because it's important. It's not that you have to know everything. It's that you know where to get the things that you need to know. So this is avoiding you. This is a way to avoid you simply going, I don't know. I don't like 2015. I only started working here in 2019. Why would I care? And then you also develop a Brooklyn accent, similar to the accent that I've frequently given Mr. Liam Neeson. We could bring him up again. So you want to make sure that you know where to get it. You know the medium by which you're going to give it to them. And you finally, if you can get it shorter, get it shorter. But if you have to check on it, do research, just tell them you know where to get it. You know the medium that you're going to contact them on. And finally, you know exactly what date or what time you are going to give them that information. Kosher? Yeah, kosher. Okay. Last but not least, here we go. What if they're hostile? Now, when I say hostile, what I mean is they are angry. They don't want you to answer their question. And what you realize is they're just trying to embarrass you. So the way that you control them is you don't. You have to control the way other people perceive you in that meeting. Remember, your executive presence is on the line. So you want to be, number one, calm, clear. You want to acknowledge the question in the same way. Thank you for the question. And now the difference with a hostile question, if they're like, hey, how come you keep screwing up all the budget numbers? And every single time we go for a budget meeting, we're behind. You don't have the right numbers. It seems like you're just jerking around. Like, why don't you go become a forester and go work where there's no people involved. You're just cutting trees down and communing with nature. Like, that's a better suited for you. Like, there are people that will be hostile like this. And what you want to do is, after you acknowledge, instead of anchoring to a bigger message, you want to do what I call redirect or reframing. You want to do a redirect or a reframe to ultimately what the bottom line is that ties into the message. So the anchor portion is going to be acknowledgement of, we strive, not I, we strive to make sure that we are doing the best we can for our shareholders time after time. And then here's the bonus part that you're going to add. You are going to give some sort of evidence that is contrary to the bitterness that they are trying to inject. So what you're going to say is, for example, we have implemented a new ABC process, which ensures that the latest and greatest numbers and the latest and greatest shipping information is being given to all of our drivers. And I know I'm blending industries here, but you're telling them something that has been structurally implemented in the organization. And so you're doing that not for that person, because you don't want to acknowledge that person anymore. Once you acknowledge them, you want to focus on everybody else. Like, you're telling them, hey, this is what we're doing. And you don't want it, because that hostile person just wants to hurt you. So you want to anchor it to something that the organization or you and your team, but I would keep it away from you if you can, aim it at the organization, has done to serve the shortfall of that question. And then you answer that simply and clearly and bridge to the next question. Is it a science? It's more of an art than a science. But you want to make sure when you're doing this, you don't give away a tell, like you're, here we go, or roll your eyes, or sigh, or, start stuttering. You want to make sure that you keep control, because people are monitoring not what you're saying, but how you're saying it. So with that said, I went over further than I wanted to, but that's how you handle questions and answers. Now, if you want more help about this, I'm your guy. I specialize in executive communication, and I would love to work with you. I have a client that I'm working with tomorrow morning on a VIP day, and that's a day where we sit, and for 4 hours, I go over your individual communication style. I go over your goals, see what you want to do, and then I will show you a better way to do it so that you never communicate in the same way again. If that sounds like it's something that interests you, podcast at samuellinton.com, podcast at samuellinton.com. But until next time, shift your mindset. Oh, I always mess this up. Until next time, change your mindset, shift your focus, find your voice, and change the world. We'll see you soon.